fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I apologize, but I'm going to have to hurry up with this episode. My laptop is dying, and so I've been working on this episode all morning. So it's Tuesday morning. I'm fixing to head out of town. I was going to do this episode real quick, read these sites, but my laptop is dying, and so I just recorded about 45 minutes, and about halfway through it just shut off, and so I lost all of it. So I'm going to have to hurry up. So what I was going to do today, I can't do because I've got about 20 minutes and this thing's going to shut off on me. Sunday, I was doing an episode. See, it's already doing it. So I don't know if it's an episode. And it took me all day. So about midnight, I'm about an hour and a half into this episode thinking I'm fixing to have to edit for an hour, and it shut off on me. So I just went to bed. And so I had Rob on last night, and it was late. We were trying to hurry through that thing because I didn't want to lose that. And so I might have Rob back on again. So we were panicked, and I don't know if you could tell, but I was so excited for Rob. I'm excited for the city letter carrier, like I was saying last night, because of who he is, what he's about, the person that he is. The passion he has for the city letter carrier. We're fortunate to have him as director of city delivery. Y'all will love that guy, trust me. But we were in a panic last night because we didn't know if we was going to make it through it. So a lot of the stuff we were wanting to talk about, we didn't get to. And but we'll do it again. I got a new laptop coming in, and so I apologize to Rob. I apologize to y'all having to rush through that with him, because I wanted to spend some more time with him, but we just couldn't. And I've got about 20-30 minutes max on this thing, and it's going to shut off on me. So the sites I was going to read, I'm not going to be able to read those because it's going to take me a while, and y'all know how I feel about reading anyway. What I will get into today is the charge, the Constitution. I want y'all to hear this business agent. I want y'all to hear what we're up against as city letter carriers when we're dealing with these business agents who have turned their back on the city letter carrier and are fully worshiping the President Brian Renfro. And that's what we have right now. I want you to hear the great lengths that this business agent goes through to try to explain away why they went against our Constitution. It's comical if it wasn't so tragic. And this is the guy that immediately called for the charges to be dismissed without merit. This is the clown that did that. And people are like, well, he doesn't like you. I don't give two fucks if this guy likes me or not. I don't give a damn if any of them like me. I really don't. It will piss you off when you hear this guy try to explain away why they didn't follow the Constitution, because nothing he says is constitutional. They're just adding shit to the Constitution that's not in there. And I'll play it and then I'll talk about it, but so many people message me like we was talking to my business agent, he doesn't like you. Look, here's the thing about that. I didn't start this to make friends. I didn't start this for people to like me. I started this to educate my people because we were not doing it nationally. The small stations were not getting education, and that's why I started this, period. There's no other reason. I wanted to make sure that my carriers were protected and that they were defended properly, that case files were getting put together properly. And that's why I started this. It wasn't until I realized that the business agents were pieces of shit and that my executive council and resident officers mostly were pieces of shit that it turned the way it has. I will not apologize for how I speak, how I talk, who I say things about. I will not apologize. People don't like me in the executive council, fuck them. People don't like me as resident officers, fuck them too. I'm here for the city letter carrier only. If it doesn't involve the city letter carrier, I don't want to have anything to do with it. If it doesn't involve protecting the city letter carrier, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm not getting a position for money. I'm not getting a position for retirement. I'm getting a position because the union that I love has failed the city letter carrier. That's it. Now, I don't get on my knees at night and pray, dear Lord, please let these cowardly, spineless, gutless pieces of shit like me. I want all of them to like me. I don't give a damn if a cowardly, spineless, gutless, backstabbing piece of shit likes me. I just don't. I never will. I don't go around thinking, who is the gutless, most gutless, spineless, cowardly piece of shit we got? Oh, those business agents. Man, let me go hobnob with them. I don't want nothing to do with them. I don't even want to speak to them. And you'll see Exhibit A right here when I play this audio. But I'm going to read the Constitution to you again, because this is the only Article 10 we have. There is no other Article 10. And then I'm going to play this audio and hope to God it goes through. Hope to God it goes through, because it's quite lengthy. But I want y'all to hear it. I want y'all to hear it. How they think we're fools. How this guy talks to his people like we're idiots. Some business agents are trying to explain away, well, the charges went against some bylaws and locals. That's the type of shit they're telling us. But anyway, here's Article 10. I've read this before. I'm going to read it again, and then I'm going to let you hear this clown talk to his constituents. He talks about, well, when the charges come in, they give them to the attorney. Nothing in Article 10 states that. We have this executive session. Nothing in Article 10 talks about that. We all look at the charges, and then we'll decide, if it's going to go to investigator. Nothing in Article 10 talks about that. This is Article 10. This is it. There is no other Article 10. Here it is, Article 10, removal of officers. In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. I'm going to read that again. In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. So that's two things, right? Your executive council and resident officers don't know how to read. They don't know how to read when they say that, well, we just didn't see a violation of the Constitution. First off, that's not your call. That's the examiner, the investigator's call. He will investigate, and then he will hand y'all his investigation, and then you will determine, based off of his investigation, whether they are substantial or not. That's the only thing that happens. But I'm going to read this again. In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution, that's two things. And they're separate. That's the reason that word or is in there. So in case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution on the part of any officer of this association or state association, the Executive Council shall have power to remove them from office, impose such other penalty as it may deem proper, or suspend such state association after a fair hearing, subject to appeal to the National Convention. Any member may file with the Executive Council a charge that an officer of the National Association or state association has been guilty of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. I'll read that again. Any member. So we had a member file charges against Renfro and Barner. Okay? It says any member. So they were within their rights to do that under Article 10. Any member may file with the Executive Council a charge that an officer of the National Association or a state association has been guilty of neglect of duty or violation of the Constitution. Upon the filing of such charge, the president or executive vice president or the vice president, if the charge is against both the president and executive vice president, shall, I'm going to read that again, upon the filing of such charge. Okay, so we filed a charge, and here's what they must do. Upon the filing of such charge, it does not say after the Executive Council looks at the charge, after attorneys look at the charge, after we have executive session, after we have an Executive Council meeting, after the president or the executive vice president calls people trying to persuade them to throw them out without merit. It doesn't say any of that shit. It says, upon the filing of such charge, the president or executive vice president or the vice president if the charge is against both the president and executive vice president, shall, as soon as practicable, A, send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officer or officers charged, and B, appoint a member who is not involved in the charge to investigate the same and to make a report in writing within 30 days to the Executive Council on the results of their findings. That's it. That's it. There's nothing about attorneys, nothing about executive session, nothing about having a vote before the investigator is determined. None of that. This is the Constitution. This is Article 10. A, send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officer or officers charged. Not the Executive Council, not the resident officers. It says send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officer or officers charged, and B, appoint a member who is not involved in the charge to investigate the same and to make a report in writing within 30 days to the Executive Council on the results of their findings. That's it. Anything other than that is a violation of this Constitution. Any avenues or steps taken other than those two is a violation of the Constitution, period. James Henry, being the vice president, appointed Pete Moss to investigate the charge that both Barner and Renfro were included in. Immediately reached out to Pete Moss and assigned him to investigate these charges. Goes on, a copy of such report shall be sent by mail to the charging member and to the officer against whom the charge was filed. I'll read that again. A copy of such report, this is the investigator's findings. A copy of such report shall be sent by mail to the charging member, that's the person who brought the charges up against Renfro and Barner, and to the officer against whom the charge was filed. Not the Executive Council, not the resident officers. Then it says, the Executive Council shall determine whether a substantial charge is presented by the report and, if so, shall direct a hearing thereon before a panel of 3 disinterested members, excluding the investigator. The panel shall make a report with recommendations to the Executive Council, which will be served on the accused officer and charging member, who may, within 15 days, file with the Executive Council objections or comments thereon. If the Executive Council finds the officer guilty, it shall be empowered to remove them from office or impose such other penalty as it may deem proper. Any member aggrieved by such decision of the Executive Council shall have the right to appeal to the National Convention. To perfect such appeal to the National Convention, the aggrieved member must no later than 60 days prior to the National Convention file with the chairperson of the Executive Council by registered mail notice of appeal, together with a full written statement of the reasons why the appeal should be granted. If the adverse decision of the Executive Council is not rendered until 65 days or less prior to the National Convention, the notice to appeal and statement of reasons must be filed as soon as after receipt of the decision as is reasonably possible. So those are the steps. That's it. There is no caveat or unless. It says that upon receiving the charges, there'll be registered mail sent out. And then they'll appoint a member to investigate. That's it. Those are the only 2 things. There'll be a report rendered off of the investigation. It'll be sent to the charging member and to the office against the charges filed. That's it. Then the Executive Council gets involved. Then and only then does the Executive Council get involved after the investigation. There is nothing in there about we're going to give this to our attorneys to look over. There's a registered mail sent out, and then immediately there's an investigator. Nothing about an attorney looking at it to see if it's proper, or to see if it follows the Constitution, or to see if has anything to do with neglected duty. None of that stuff is added into the Constitution on Article 10. None of it. The investigator will determine all of those things after the investigation. Remember that when you hear this clown. So here it is. Here's this business agent trying to explain away why they violated the Constitution. And remember now, he talks about this secret executive session. There's nothing in any constitutional bylaws or anything like that talks about executive session or that it's secret, some secret society. When we get together, we can talk freely, but when we go into executive session, now that's hush hush. No such thing. If you're on the clock, you work for me. I'm paying you. You don't say you're going to go into some secret session. Everything you do should be out in the open. The only reason you go into some secret executive session is because you know you motherfuckers are wrong about something. But there's nothing talking about an executive session. Find executive session for me. And it's going to be on the hush hush. You know why? Because we're fixing to fuck over the city letter carrier. That's why. But listen to all this shit he's talking about. Executive session, the attorneys. We looked at them and we decided that crazy shit. I'll play it and then I'll talk about it some more. Here it goes.
So first of all, maybe I can tell you what I can tell you. And that is, when we have an executive council meeting, the official minutes are taken by usually the assistant secretary treasurer, and those minutes can be requested unless they contain parts of executive session. And I believe, I did not go back to my calendar, and I don't take the notes at the executive council meetings, especially when we go into executive session, because executive session, the information that is discussed during executive session has always been, ever since I've been on the council, that is information that is not to be shared, and we are instructed that it's not to be shared, even though apparently there are some that do want to share that information. So that's going to have to be dealt with, I guess separately. But that meeting on the 16th, the entire executive council meeting was in executive session, and it was dealing with charges that were filed against Brian Renfro, the president, and Paul Varner, the vice president, or executive vice president of our union. And so there's, and what I can tell you, I can't give you any details because then I am, unfortunately, I wish I could, but I can't give you any details because then I breach my responsibility that I've been given. So unfortunately, it's just one of those things where I can't tell you any details. Again, I wish I could, but in the most general sense, I can tell you that in the last 2 years, multiple officers have been given charges or charges preferred upon them and usually the attorneys always look at them as well, and they determine, like, I can talk about charges that were dealt with before, like charges that were filed against Brian Renfro for not following one of the or two of the resolutions to the T that were passed at the last national convention. And so those were investigated. A report was done, and per the Constitution, the Executive Council voted whether those charges were substantial or not, and the majority of the council voted that they were not, and those charges were dismissed. In other cases, in the last 2 years, 2 years or so, that that has happened with some charges. We all know about the ones that Chris Jackson filed against Brian Renfro. If you went to the national convention, that was the dominating topic at that national convention. We had to cancel a lot of other scheduled activities because of that. But we got through them going forward afterward. There have been other sets of charges that have come in, again, charging multiple officers, Eddie Davidson, Nicole Ryan, Brian Renfro. I wouldn't be able to tell you all the rest of them because I just don't remember. But what some of those happen is when their charges are written up, there has to actually be a violation or some facts of a violation of the Constitution. You can't just say, well, the sky's blue and, you said it was gray, so I'm going to charge you or whatever. They have to have actually some kind of foundation in the Constitution as a violation. And so on several of those charges over the last couple of years plus that have come in, they have been dealt with the same way that we dealt with the charges on the 16th, and that's what I'm assuming that you are referring to. And so I know that there is a letter that is going out to the charging party. I do not have a copy of that letter. I have not seen it yet. But that's how it is. It's not throwing the charges out as being as being gone through the whole system and have an investigator appointed and have everybody get together again. It is like we have done in the past when those charges were evaluated the way that they were written up, and there is no violation of the Constitution. We have done the same thing. We have had a letter written to the charging party explaining why it doesn't rise to that level. Now, that does not prevent anybody from filing charges again, alleging an actual violation of the Constitution. I hope, Jeff, that is good enough for an explanation, because that's all I can tell you. I cannot tell you any details of the 16th, otherwise I breach my duties. And I will not do that.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. Did y'all hear what he said? He said they will determine if there's a violation of the Constitution. We will look at them, and then we'll determine if there's a violation of the Constitution. How dangerous is that? That the charging party will send in a charge, and then you will have an influencer, Barner, calling around telling people, hey, we're going to have this executive session. We need your support on this, which happened. And then they're going to get together, look at the charges, and say, we didn't find a violation of the Constitution. How dangerous is that? But that's what he just said. And then he's going to say something as stupid as, we know when we get charges, if it says the sky is blue, and what in the fuck are you talking about, the sky is blue? I'm going to read the charge to you, charge number 6 that he's talking about. It's a substantial charge based on the Constitution, things that they're required to do. And he couldn't even get an investigator. Why? Because you have clowns like this saying, we get an attorney, and then we look at them, just like we do in the past. Of course, I can't speak too much, because I'm in this special session, and it'll be a breach of my duties. Your duty is to the city letter carrier, brother. That's your duty, to the city letter carrier, not to some bitch president. That's not your duty, to cover up and protect that piece of shit. Your duty is to the city letter carriers who elected your sorry ass to get in there as NBA. That's your duty. And you're talking about, well, this executive session is supposed to be private. That obviously people weren't private. That will be dealt with. I wish a son of a bitch would deal with something with me about some executive session. But that's what I'm talking about. This is a dangerous precedent. When you have an executive council say, well, the attorney looks at it, that's not in the, you didn't hear me read that in the Constitution. And then we will look at it, and if it's not constitutional, we'll throw it out. You don't determine that. You don't determine it. The investigator investigates, and then the executive council gets involved. This secret society, this executive session, well, once we get into executive session, we don't take minutes because it's secret. It's secret. And I can't speak about it because I'll be in breach of my duties. How stupid does that sound? If somebody writes a charge saying that the sky is blue and it's gray, we're not fucking children. We're not idiots. Nobody sent in a charge saying that the sky was blue. But that's how dangerous this is. It gets worse. It gets worse. Listen.
You can also write a letter to President Renfro. You're more than welcome to do that.
That's the discussion phase of the motion.
Dan, would that be the discussion phase of the motion?
You have two hands up.
Well, the discussion, the way that I understand
right, the motion was to, it was inquiring to the executive council meeting of April 16th.
Right, and I just explained that's all I can even discuss, and like I said, anybody can write a letter to President Renfro. We are going to be having a national rap session. The dates have not been identified yet. Most likely it will be early fall, and so that will be sent out to the branch presidents. That's on all the off years of conventions. We always have that. It's a requirement in the Constitution. The even years you have a national convention. The odd years you have a.
Now he's worried about the Constitution. Did y'all hear that? Well, per the Constitution, now they're worried about the Constitution. They wasn't worried about it before, but now they're worried about the Constitution.
A national rap session, so that will be identified. I don't know how soon. I think what they try to do is they try and figure out all the state conventions that are planned and rap sessions that are planned, regional rap sessions, all that stuff, and then they try to fit in a rap session, national rap session that we can get the majority of the branches to participate in. So,
Got 2 questions.
Yes.
Lexus and Beavis for everyone at Philbrook, as well as race.
Let's do it first. What is it?
The only question that I have, and again, as far as the Constitution and how charges are being brought up, I don't, and I'm not aware, so maybe you could probably help me out, Dan, but so as far as once the charges come in, right, and depending on who there are, whether it's the president, then there's somebody who initiates an investigation, right? Now, the question I have is, can a charge be dismissed without having to go through an investigation, as how it says in the Constitution? And if so, who decides that? Who decides that if they aren't substantial enough to warrant an investigation?
all right, so I'm going to try and answer your question to the best of my ability. So normally a charge comes in, it has to allege a violation of the Constitution, and it has to be based on the Constitution.
Okay.
And so
Now remember, I just read the chart. I just read the Constitution. What he just said. It says, in case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. Remember that. What he just say? It has to be based on the Constitution. It says, in case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. So he doesn't know how to read. So hang on.
So when a charge comes in, and I'm not the expert, that's why I'm, what is that? I'm sorry, no, apparently this, a dancing bear on the chat. Mr. Greeting. Yeah. Okay, so, where was I? I apologize, that was very distracting. Anyway, so once they're looked at, because, they have to be sent, registered mail, blah, 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 but then they'll also send, most likely, an email copy, so that at least that they can be looked at. Gotcha. And so, I believe and again, I'm not up there, I work in the regional office, but I believe that the attorneys look at them, because they are the ones that...
Nothing in the Constitution talks about the attorneys look at them. Remember that. He's going completely outside the Constitution. I believe the attorneys look at them. What did it say? Registered letter, assign an investigator. Those are the two things. So here's where they're trying to feed us a line of shit. The attorneys look at them. I don't give a fuck about attorneys. I didn't vote for an attorney. We voted for these MBAs. I didn't vote for an attorney or any of that bullshit. So here we go.
Advise on the Constitution, and like we have done at least twice, at least twice, maybe 3 times, where that's exactly what happened. When they were looked at, they looked at the language of the Constitution, they looked at the charge. It was not based on a violation of the Constitution. So a letter is sent back, and the charges aren't dismissed. I think that would be that's the wrong word that I would use. They're not dismissed. They're basically sent back with a brief explanation why they're being sent back, which allows, of course, that person to refile those charges if they find something in the Constitution that's an actual violation of the Constitution, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
And so, so that's how it's looked at. Again, I don't, in fact, there was stuff out on the internet before I even knew charges were filed. So I don't work there in DC. I don't know the exact process, but I know that the attorneys look at it. I know that the officers look at it. And then whoever is the charging party, they're submitting it. And then the charges then have to be disseminated to the charged party or charged parties. And then, of course, then an investigator is right if they've determined that there is something based on the Constitution, a violation of the Constitution. Then those charges go to an investigator appointed by the president.
That completely made that up. Completely made that up. Are y'all hearing what they're saying? Once we all look at them and we determine whether or not there's a violation of the Constitution. That's what they just said. When they come in, they'll be disseminated. We will determine whether or not there's a violation of the Constitution. How corrupt is that? You will never get a charge through if that's how they do. You will never get a charge through with this executive council. We'll get the charge. If it's against one of my homies, we'll get together and we'll decide, hey, just get enough of us to vote this down, brother. Don't worry, we'll protect you. That's what they did. We'll take care of you, Renfro and Barner. Don't worry about it. Just call around, get enough support, and we'll say that they're not based off the Constitution. I'm going to read this to you again. In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution, here's what you're going to do. Upon the filing of such charge. Did y'all hear what he said? When you get the charge, we give it to the attorneys. We all look at it, and then we're going to determine whether it's constitutional. And then we're going to send out a letter, not dismissing the charges, but you can refile the charges. None of that shit is in the Constitution. It is bizarre how much power they have to just sit there and we'll just dismiss the damn charge. We're not going to do what the Constitution says. We'll just dismiss it. A, send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officer or officers charged. Not disseminate it to the executive council, not call an executive session so that we can look at the charges and determine whether or not the Constitution's been violated, and then we will appoint an investigator. That's not what it says. That's what he just told you. He just said, well, when you get the charges, the attorneys will look at it and they'll determine if there's anything constitutional about it. And then the executive council will get together and we'll get this executive session. And then we will look at the charges and then we will determine if there's any violation of the Constitution. And if we find that there's a violation of the Constitution, then we will appoint an investigator. That's what he just said. Here's the two things. Send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officers or officers charged. And B, appoint a member who is not involved in the charge to investigate the same and to make a report in writing within 30 days to the executive council on the results of their findings. That's when you get your report, 30 days. And then you will determine whether or not it's substantial or violates the Constitution. Bizarre. Bizarre. We'll keep on.
That's right in the Constitution, unless the president is charged, and then it would go to the executive vice president, and then if that person was being charged, then the investigator would then go to the next person down the line. And then, of course, depending on the influence, or if that person was the charging party, kind of like Chris Jackson, that person would have to recuse themselves, and it would go down to the next lower person, per the Constitution, and they would assign. In fact, I think one of them that we saw before, we would have had to have appointed 2 different investigators, and sometimes 3, because of the way that the Constitution is. The president appoints the investigator to anybody that's charged that is not himself, right? The president at that time. So you could have multiple investigations going that would result in no violation of the Constitution coming back, and now we've wasted, I hate to say it, we've wasted a heck of a lot of time and money. So again, I think dismiss...
No, you didn't hate to say that. You didn't hate to say it. He just told you that what it's about right there. The city letter care is so fucked right now with the Postal Service. All they're worried about is money. They're beating the shit out of us right now on everything. Stationary events, our office time, these 16/7s for seatbelt usage. And now you got these pivot plans, all about money. We even had a joint statement written because of money, right? Making the numbers not the excuse for the abuse of anyone. Now we have a union that's so fucking worried about protecting this piece of shit, these 2 pieces of shit at the top. What did he say about somebody filing charges? You have all these investigators. Well, that's what the Constitution says, motherfucker. You get investigators if somebody files a charge. I'm sorry that it says that. I'm sorry that it inconveniences y'all to appoint an investigator because somebody was charged. I hate that for you. And you get it, and it's no violation of the Constitution. It's just a waste of time and money. Who in the fuck are you to say that following the Constitution is a waste of time and money? Because your beloved Renfro had a charge against him. Good God. How pathetic are these people, man? These are elected officials in NBA. All of this is a load of shit. I would love for him to come on here and defend that. I'll have the Constitution and we'll read it together. And then him tell y'all, the country, why they did that. What provision of this Constitution, what section of this Constitution gives you the authority to do what you just did? Well, we've always done it. I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you what you've always done or how you've always handled things. I didn't ask you that. I want you to show me in the Constitution where it says a charging party can send in a charge and then y'all disseminate it amongst yourselves and the attorneys to determine whether or not they're valid. And then you will appoint an investigator. Show me that in the Constitution. I want him to come on here and do that. I'm challenging him as a man. Come on here and do that. And tell the country, why is it that we have a Constitution and y'all refuse to abide by it? Just so you can protect the sorriest motherfucker we've ever had as a president. Just so you can protect that sorry piece of shit. Come on here, sir. And say the same shit you just said about the Constitution. How y'all determine whether or not the charge is valid. We will look at it ourselves. And we will determine whether or not the charges are constitutional or if they're valid. And then we will send a letter back telling you why they're not. I'm going to read the charge, and then I'll read the letter that they sent back, as long as my laptop hangs in there. I'm going to keep on.
Is not the correct word. It would be sending the charges back and explaining how they do not fall under the Constitution, or they've already been addressed, right? So I hope that answers your question there, Alexa.
Oh,
Yeah, no, yeah.
Before we go, and I call on Demas because I want to give him an opportunity too, but, you know, I'm kind of questioning right now so there was a motion and it was seconded, but is this all discussion? And I'm not sure I'm still confused as to what the motion is. Because the motion says it's to inquire to the executive council meeting of April 16th. And I'm like, okay, but are we talking about that and that's answering it? Or what is can you clarify?
What am I clarifying?
You're the maker of the motion, so you ended up putting a motion to inquire into the executive council meeting of April 16 of 2025. And I'm just kind of wondering, is that being answered here? And if it's not, what is it exactly that the motion is asking?
I'm just kind of wondering, I feel like he's going to say that he can't answer it because I guess at this point we want to follow the Constitution. But if someone's being charged with something, I do not think that they should be able to go in front of a council and ask for it to be essentially pushed to the side and not go through with it when a person was delegated to investigate this charge. And obviously it was put out that 14 people voted to do it, and Dan's one of them. So I'm wondering as to, especially when he tries to bring up wanting to follow the Constitution, but then the other side that wasn't supposed to be made available was, and now it's, I don't know, it seems like dancing around.
All right, so there you have it. There you have a business agent telling you that everything they did was unconstitutional, right? So all this dancing about what they do when they receive a charge, not one bit of it constitutional. That's why we're in trouble as city letter carriers, because we don't have anybody looking out for us. Well, you got a handful. I know that James Henry raised hell. I think that Mike Cariff backed him up in there. And then you had a few that that did the right thing. But here's the letter that was received back to the charging party. This was the letter from National. Dear Brother Rivera, this will confirm that you have submitted charges against President Brian Renfro and Executive Vice President Paul Barner under Article 10 of the NELC Constitution. The charges were received at NELC headquarters on April 4th, 2025. Please be advised that your charges have been reviewed by the NELC Executive Council. Nothing in the Constitution says that will happen. Nothing in the Constitution says that that's what's going to happen. Please be advised that your charges have been reviewed by the NELC Executive Council. I'm going to read A and B again. Send by registered mail a copy of the charges to the officer or officers charged, and B, appoint a member who is not involved in the charge to investigate the same and to make a report in writing within 30 days to the Executive Council on the results of their findings. That's it. I'll read the first part of it. Upon the filing of such charge, the president or executive vice president or the vice president of the charges against both the president and executive vice president shall, as soon as practicable, those two things. It doesn't say shall give to the executive council for review. It doesn't say that. This executive council has lost its mind. They are rogue, just like your president and executive vice president. I'll keep on reading. Please be advised that your charges have been reviewed by the NELC Executive Council. The council has determined that the charges fail to allege a neglect of duty or a violation of the NEL Constitution as required by Article 10. They don't have that authority. The council made the following specific determinations. Now, this is prior to an investigative report. The first and fifth charges alleged that Brother Renfro and Brother Barner failed to disclose certain facts in the President's and Executive Vice President's reports to the 2024 National Convention. The appropriate remedy for an alleged failure to include required information in a report would be to lodge an objection to the report at the convention and to make a motion for an appropriate correction. No such motions were made. On the contrary, the delegates voted to approve and adopt the President's report as recommended by the Committee on the President's Report. The second and third charges are identical to charges previously submitted to the Executive Council by another member. These charges were investigated and the Council reviewed the report of the investigator. The Council determined that the charges were not substantial. Now, it does not say, there's no caveat, A or B, unless there's been a charge filed just like this one. It doesn't say that. You may say it's a waste of time and money. You don't have that authority or that right. There's nothing in here saying unless you do A or B, unless we have a similar charge that was brought forward and investigated. It may seem redundant, but it's not in the Constitution. It says that you'll do those two things once somebody's filed a charge. The fourth charge alleges that President Renfro failed to conduct a ratification vote with respect to the Nolan Award. The council determined that the Nolan Award was legally final and binding on the parties and was not subject to a ratification vote. Finally, the council determined that the sixth charge alleges violation of provisions of the Constitution which do not exist. Now, what does it state here in Article 10? In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. Two things. In case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. It doesn't say in case of neglect of duty based on the Constitution or in case of neglect of duty and violation of the Constitution. It says in case of neglect of duty or violation of this Constitution. I'll read this part again. Finally, the council determined that the sixth charge alleges violation of the provisions of the Constitution which do not exist. Accordingly, no further action will be taken with respect to the charges. In solidarity, Mac Julian. Here's charge number 6 that they just said wasn't based in the Constitution. This is charge number 6. Charge number 6, charge against President Brian L. Renfro and Executive Vice President Paul Barner for collusion and concealment of collective bargaining progress, violation of the oath of office and Article 10, Section 1. NALC Officer, Oath of Office, Article 9, Section 1. I do solemnly pledge on my honor that I will faithfully observe the Constitution of the National Association of Letter Carriers. I will faithfully perform all the duties of my office. I will harm no member and see no member harmed if I can prevent it. Article 10, Section 1 of the NALC Constitution. Charges may be preferred against any officer of the National Association of Letter Carriers for violation of the Constitution, or for conduct detrimental to the best interest of the association, or for violations of official duties. I'll read that again. Charges may be preferred against any officer of the National Association of Letter Carriers for violation of the Constitution, or for conduct detrimental to the best interests of the association, or for violation of the official duties. We charge that President Brian L. Renfro and Executive Vice President Paul Barner engaged in coordinated concealment of critical information related to the status of national collective bargaining negotiations developed under former President Frederick Orlando. This concealment constitutes a willful violation of Article 10, Section 1 of the NALC Constitution, and a breach of the oath of office, which binds national officers to harm no member and see no member harmed if you can prevent it. Testimony contained in the Weir and Weiner reports confirms that, according to former President Orlando, the NALC and USPS were near agreement to the terms of a negotiated collective bargaining contract prior to his departure. This progress was never disclosed by either President Brian L. Renfro or Executive Vice President Barner following the leadership transition. Neither officer has provided a clear record of what progress had been made, whether the prior agreement was continued or abandoned, or whether the membership's interests were weighed in that decision. The deliberate omission of this material information from all reports submitted to the Executive Council and the membership suggests a coordinated effort to obscure the union's bargaining posture and strategy. The effect of this silence may have been a delay in achieving a fair and timely agreement, directly harming the economic interest of the membership. This failure to disclose not only contradicts the officer's constitutional duty to report their official acts under Article 9, Section 1 and 2, but also undermines the democratic accountability of our union and violates the spirit of the National Convention's authority as its highest decision-making body. This charge is submitted with the belief that such concealment rises to the level of official misconduct and calls for investigation under Article 10, Section 1 of the NALC Constitution. So that's the charge that James Henry appointed Pete Moss to investigate. And you just heard me read that the Executive Council determined that that's not constitutional. How? First off, it's not their right to determine whether or not a charge is substantial prior to it being investigated. The investigator can tell you, based on my investigation, this does not fall under the purview of the Constitution or neglect of duty or harming any member. Based on my investigation, that's my conclusion. And then they can say, we agree with your investigative findings in your report. We agree that it has no merit. They do not have any provision in the Constitution that gives them the right to disseminate a charge and to make a ruling on a charge before it's investigated. There is nothing in the Constitution that gives them that right. We're in a pivotal time with our union. We have those that have decided to go outside the realm of our Constitution and protect a president, a lame duck president, at all costs. They will get in front of members and tell them, this is how we do things now. We do not follow the Constitution when we have charges against our own. We will protect our own from y'all, the city letter carrier. We will circle our wagons up here at National against the city letter carrier and the charges that y'all are bringing against us. That's what's happening now. That's where we're at. A pivotal time right now with the city letter carrier craft in our union. So this individual filed Article 10 charges against everybody up there. And I'll read those Sunday when I get my new laptop. I'm amazed that this has lasted this long. but it had. So I'm gonna get out of here before I lose all of this, because then I'll be really upset. But I hope it turned out all right. I'll have to edit it, so hopefully every bit of it came out. But yeah, it's lasted much longer than I thought it would. But anyway, I wanted to read that to y'all to sell the city letter carrier. We're in dire straits right now, man. With a postal service that is, they've put out a full-on attack on the city letter carrier. They are attacking us now, full time. We've got a union that has circled the wagon around themselves, and the city letter carrier stands alone in the middle. We stand alone. We will handle our business here. We will handle our business here. This union will be changed come next year. It will be changed. You've got integrity coming back into this union. You've got people that want to fight and know how to fight coming back into this union. You have individuals that put the city letter carrier first coming back into this union. What you just heard in that recording is somebody putting the city letter carrier last and putting themselves, their interest, above the city letter carrier. That's all that was. The complete load of shit that guy was talking. I beg him to come on here and defend that shit he's just talking about. I beg him to come on here. Well, he don't like you. Fuck him. Fuck all of them that don't like me. I don't give two fucks who likes me or not. I'm in here to save the fucking city letter carrier craft, man. That's what we're going to do. That's all I'm concerned about now. We're in fucking trouble, man. With this clown-ass executive council and these two fucking loser-ass clowns at the top. They're above the law. To them. They're above the fucking law. Any of them can come on here and get some. Any of them can come on here and get some that voted that down. Any of the 14, come on here and get you some. I'll have the Constitution with me. I'll have the Constitution with me. Well, my business agent don't like you either. He can kiss my ass too. He can kiss my ass too. The cowardly, spineless, gutless MBAs we have right now, and executive officers and resident officers, the sheer cowardice and corruption that's going on right now with our union is unbelievable. But we'll vote those motherfuckers out next year. We'll vote those motherfuckers out. I know that. I know that shit. I love you, city letter carrier. I love you. I do. And I'm ready to get the fuck down on some shit on y'all's behalf. When I talk about going motherfuckering, this is what we're talking about. We will do this ourselves. We will take care of this ourselves. Fuck all them. City letter carrier. We're in this together. We're in this together. They're trying to tell us to sit down and be quiet. They're lying to our faces. They're above the law. Shitting on us. Labor shitting on us. Postal Service shitting on us. We will come out on the other side of this, city letter carriers. In front. In front. I promise you that. That's a promise from me to you. The golden age of the city letter carrier is coming. Is coming. Fuck everybody else. All right? I love you very much. I'm going to try to get my hour episode in tomorrow for the Lion's Den. I'm going to try and if I can make that happen. Maybe shorten it a little bit so I don't lose that. But I have my new laptop coming. It's going to be a new day for From 8 Arbitration. New laptop coming. All right. I love y'all very much, man. We're going to take care of all this. This is temporary. We'll take care of it. All right. Y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. Talk to y'all tomorrow on Lion's Den for those of y'all who listen. More 6-day count, okay? I love you. Bye.